Because who doesn't love dragons? Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and today I'm coming to you with a book haul. It has been a minute since I've had a book haul on this channel, and that is because I've actually been doing pretty good about not bringing in an excess amount of books into the house. Last year, I was a bit of an over book buyer, and this year I haven't gone on a book ban, but I've just been more intentional with the books that I'm bringing in, which just means I'm typically bringing in less of them, which is good because my shelves were getting a little overwhelming, and I'm using my library more, which is also fantastic. I've also got Kindle this year, so I'm using KU more. A lot of these things are the reasons that I have been buying less books, but I'm still buying some books. And I think I have about 12 that I've hauled since I last talked to all of you. It is mostly pre-orders. I have about half pre-orders, half items that I got at a used bookstore or a little free library. So let's dive into the pre-orders and get to those. I will say, I'm a little disappointed I haven't read these books. The whole point of pre-orders is to read them right away. And I was doing very good at that at the start of the year. I was getting books and reading them very quickly, but my pre-orders have started to stack up a little bit. I have 7, I've read none of them. You know, that's not great, but let's dive in and go through what they are. The first one is Ruth Ware's 0 Days. This follows Jacqueline and her husband. They are both security breach specialists. Jacqueline goes on a mission, comes home, and finds her husband murdered. The authorities are zeroing in on a suspect, and that suspect is her. So obviously, she knows she didn't do it, so she goes on the run to try to save herself, and also, I'm assuming, find out while she is on the run, solve who killed her husband. I do really like Ruth Ware books. I will say a lot of the time, Ruth Ware for me is less of a thriller author and more of like a classic whodunit author. I always enjoy my time with Ruth Ware, and I'm hoping to enjoy this one as well. The next book I pre-ordered was Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. This is the prequel novella to Asleep in a Sea of Stars, which I love. I love Asleep in a Sea of Stars. It was one of my favorite books of the year when I read it. Gave it 5 stars. The sci-fi was great. The action was great. It was 600 and some pages, and it read like that. It was such a fantastic book. Highly recommend. So obviously, since this is kind of a prequel to Asleep in a Sea of Stars, I'm not going to go into what this book is, but I am very excited to pick this up. It is significantly smaller than Asleep in a Sea of Stars, which will make it easier to pick up when I finally have the time. It is now going into the stack, and hopefully I'll get to it by the end of the year. And I would love to say that about all these pre-orders, but realistically it's already September. So that's unlikely, especially since guaranteed I have pre-orders coming in the second half of the year. We also have Everyone Here Is Lying by Sherry Lapina. This looks like a missing child thriller where 9-year-old Avery goes missing, and there seems to be some suspicion around her father, Will. Will, earlier in the day, was the last person to see Avery, and also he's got some secrets around an affair that he was having that actually ended the day Avery went missing. So how that all connects, because that's literally all that is in the synopsis of this book, I have no idea. But it literally says, this man has secrets. He had an affair. His affair ended badly. His daughter's missing. And that's all that's in the synopsis. And everyone is lying. I would love to tell you more than that, but that is what the publishers deemed for me to know going into this book. Next, we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is the sequel companion story to Part of Your World, which I gave 5 stars to last year. Honestly, I might have even read that this year, like early this year in February. I don't remember. Anyway, loved Part of Your World, gave it 5 stars, had a fantastic time with that book. This is the companion novel to that story. And this follows Dr. Brianna Ortiz. We meet Brianna in the first book, not a ton, but we do meet Brianna in the first book. She is a side character and a friend to our main female character in Part of Your World. So she is working at the hospital, and now there is a new male doctor at the hospital, Jacob. And she is not loving the Jacob. And it sounds like it's starting out as an enemies to lovers situation. But then Jacob steps in and writes Brianna a letter. What is in this letter? I have no idea, but it makes her change her opinions about this man and start to swoon. And it's a rom-com. I'm excited to read it because, like I said, I loved Part of Your World. I absolutely loved that book, and I'm excited to see what this holds. We have another companion novel to another book that I read this year, which was Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. This is Unfortunately Yours. It is the companion novel that follows Julian's sister, Natalie. Julian is our male protagonist in the first book. This is his sister. Their family owns a very large vineyard in this town. Julian comes home for his reasons, and in the first book, we see Natalie come home for hers. She is in the first book, and so is our male protagonist in this book. He is an ex-Navy SEAL. I would not say that I expected that coupling from the first book. There was some drama between the Navy SEAL and Natalie in the first book, so I am somewhat surprised that that is how this is going, but I do know that this is a marriage of convenience trope. So why these two are having to get married, I do not know, but they have to get married because someone needs a groom or a bride or whatever, what have you. And this is a marriage of convenience, enemies to lovers. I'm excited to see how this goes because I really loved the first book. I ended up giving the first book 4 stars, but it was a 5-star right up until the third act breakup. The third act breakup was so ridiculous, I had to not give it 5 stars. But the book overall was fantastic, and I have so high hopes that this is just as good or maybe even better and can actually pull out the 5-star that I wanted to give the first book. This may be, depending on how this goes, my favorite Tessa Bailey series as a whole. I think it might be, which is maybe why I haven't picked this up yet, because it will end this series. It's only supposed to be 2 books, and I'm kind of sad to end it. So maybe that's why I haven't picked this up yet. I also grabbed the 3rd book in the Love Light Farms series. I read Love Light Farms in December of this year, ended up giving it 5 stars. Absolutely love this book. And then the 2nd book I read, I think for Rom-Comathon, it only got 3 stars because miscommunication was just rampant in that 2nd book. But I'm holding out hope that I get what I loved about the first book back in book number 3. This follows Layla. Layla is a baker at Love Light Farms. And we've seen Layla in both books, and we've also seen Caleb. Caleb is the constable in this small town. He has had a crush on Layla for a very long time. So I'm assuming they finally get together. And do not quote me on this, but I feel like there's an age gap between Lila and Caleb. I don't know that to be 100% fact, but for some reason, I vaguely remember that that was one of the reasons Layla was kind of keeping her distance, was because she was older. I am excited to go back to this town. Love Light Farms is one of my favorite small towns. The small town vibes in Love Light Farms is just fantastic. It is the most quirky little small town you could ever go to. And I'm excited to return with these characters. And like I said, I just hope that what I loved about the first book is back in this book, and there's less miscommunication, because the miscommunication in book 2 was just way too much for me. So I'm really hoping this book doesn't rely on miscommunication, and we move away from that for book number 3. Then we have Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. How I have not read this, I do not know. Babel was the first book I read this year. It is still probably my favorite book of the year, and I don't know if that will be taken from it at this point. I absolutely adored Babel. This was pre-ordered immediately when I heard about it. I've still not read it, and I do not know why. I have just not had the time, and I really just want to have the time to sit down and just read it and not have anything interrupt me, and that's hard to come by, and that is why I haven't read this book yet. Do I know what this is about? Only from what I've heard kind of in passing. I have not watched any reviews of Yellowface. I have not read the synopsis of Yellowface because I just want to go in and read it for myself. I do know it takes place in the literary world where someone steals someone's manuscript. Other than that, I don't know anything about Yellowface. because I don't want to know. I want to just go into it and enjoy it as blind as possible and take it in that way. That is what I want. And that's what I will do. I know so many people who read this in a day, and that is what I plan on doing. So I just need a day where I'm like alone in the house, where I'm living my fancy life, and I can just sit down with a blanket and read Yellowface. Okay, so we are now on to our used books that I've gotten at Little Free Libraries or used bookstores. Which one I cannot 100% remember, but I think the first one that I'm going to show you is from a Little Free Library, and I think the other 4 are from a used bookstore. Pretty sure that's the case. Anyway, the first one is Dragon Spring Road. I need to take the stickers off this book before I put it away. I'm going to be painstakingly trying to get these stickers off. They're very attached because I think they've been on this book for a very long time. But this cover is much too gorgeous to be riddled with stickers. This is a historical fiction, but with a fantastical kind of mythical element. This is set in 1908 in China, and it follows a 7-year-old girl who has been abandoned at an estate, a very lavish estate in China. And she has no one really looking out for her, but the estate does take her in, and she does end up becoming friends with the owner's daughter, as well as someone named Fox. And Fox is a mythical creature who lives in the courtyard. What happens in this book, I honestly don't know. Other than that, I heard mythical creature who lives in courtyard and saw this beautiful cover and was like, done. That's all I needed to know. So I grabbed it. It was in a Little Free Library. Why would I leave it there? So I did get this. It also says murder, political intrigue, jealousy, and forbidden love in the tagline. So like, that sounds interesting as well. It's now going in the collection. When I will read this, I don't know, but I need to get the stickers off this book because the cover is just too gorgeous to be having these ugly stickers on it. So like I said, I think the rest of these books were picked up at a used bookstore. And because they were picked up at a used bookstore, I know almost nothing about them. So we're just gonna whiz through these. The first one is Blood of Elves. And this, I believe, is the first book in the Witcher series. It's definitely in the Witcher series. Is it the first book? I'm pretty sure it is, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I've been kind of wanting to start this series, especially since the Netflix show came out, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Now I have the first book, which will hopefully hasten me doing so. We shall see. So I also picked up The Dragon's Path by Daniel Abraham. This is the first book in the Dagger and Coin series. I found this, again, at a used bookstore, and the synopsis sounded interesting. It follows 3 main characters: Marcus, who is a hero whose days are behind him; Cytherin, who is an orphan and ward at a banking house; and Gender, sole scion of a noble house. And all their paths lead to war. I'm assuming there are also dragons, which I will say, the dragons was my main motivation for picking up this book because dragons are typically my main motivation for picking up a lot of books. We've also got The Forgotten Home Child by Genevieve Graham. Genevieve Graham is a historical fiction writer. She is Canadian. She actually lives very close to where I live and writes a lot of historical Canadian fiction based in Canada. This one looks into, I think, British homes for children. I know a little bit about the history of British homes for children, not a ton, but I'm excited to learn more through this historical fiction story. This has a dual timeline situation going on, but it mostly follows Winifred Ellis, who is now 97 and knows she doesn't have much time left. And it is almost a relief to realize that once she is gone, the truth about her shameful past will die with her. But when her great-grandson Jamie, the spitting image of her dear late husband, asks about their family tree, Winifred can't lie any longer, even if it means breaking a promise she made years ago. So it follows Winifred in 2 timelines, one in 2018 when she is 97, and one in 1936 when she is 15 years old. And I'm sure this is going to be a heartbreaking story, but I'm intrigued to read it. I've heard great things about this, one of Genevieve Graham's books especially. And like I said, I'm intrigued to pick it up. And last but not least, we have The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. This is a thriller set in, looks like a kind of vacation coastal town where we have a girl that comes every summer to vacation there named Sadie. and someone who actually lives in the town named Avery. They have been friends for years. Every year when Sadie comes down, they spend the summer together. Something happens to Sadie, and Sadie is found dead. The police rule Sadie's death a suicide, but Avery feels like there are a lot of people in the town and also in Sadie's family who are blaming her. Why? That is unclear. But that is what the synopsis is telling me. The tagline says, "Don't overstay your welcome." So it's definitely like a vacation summer thriller. Summer is almost over though, and I did not get to this in the summer like I kind of hoped I would, but that's okay. I will put it on the shelves and I will probably wait till next summer to pick up this thriller, but you never know. There could be a prompt for some readathon that I may need it for. After Amazing Readathon, I read so many books on my shelves that I never thought I was going to be picking up in August. So like, you never know when this is going to be like, oh, let's read The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. You just never know. But that is the end of our book haul. We've made it to the end. That is I think it's 12 books that I will be adding to my shelves. Is there any that I should prioritize? Is there something that I just put up that you've read and you're like, Brittany, how have you not read this yet? Go read it immediately. Let me know. I would love to know what I should be prioritizing from this stack. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.